I want to talk about the 1970s now. Johnny Carson moves from New York to LA in 1972, I believe. And that kind of starts the great comedian migration from all over the country to LA. Did people really start to move to LA after Freddie Prinze went on Johnny Carson and got his sitcom the next day? Did that really pick up steam for everyone moving out to LA?
No question about it. Wherever you went in 1975, like I say, people say, "What do you do for a living?" I'm a stand-up comedian. The next question out of their mouth was, "Oh yeah, you ever been on Johnny Carson? If you haven't been on Johnny Carson, the eyes of America, you just want a comedian." But when Freddie did one appearance on the Tonight Show, and I knew him when he was, a young kid, broke, didn't have any money at all, and I couldn't. He came to Chicago one time and stayed at my apartment. I had a wife and three kids, and I couldn't get. I finally got him on one radio show, but 4 months later, he did his first appearance on the Tonight Show, and it was history after that. He was on the cover of Time magazine. He had a sitcom. He was opening in Vegas. He was, you know, he was just this rise to stardom. So everybody knew there was a stairway to stardom as a stand-up comedian if you got to the Tonight Show. 26 million people watched that show a night. One appearance on the Tonight Show. So we all migrated. The Lettermans and the Lenos and the Dreesens and the Robin Williamses. I was on stage every night at the Comedy Store with all these newcomers. Michael Keaton, Robin Williams, David Letterman, Jay Leno, Elaine Boozler, me, all these newcomers. And the whole purpose was to get enough of material of an act that you could get a spot on the Johnny Carson show and it could change your life.
Do you have any good Freddie Prinze stories from before he went on Carson?
I have a couple of sad ones. I mean, before he went on Carson, we worked the New York Playboy, Tim Reed and I, and we were headliners. And there was a room. We were in a penthouse, and there was a room below called the playroom. That's where after our room got filled, the overflow they would get in that room. So the drummer down there told me, he said, "Hey Tom, there's a kid downstairs that is so funny. He's 18 years old." I said, "How old is he?" He said, "He's 18." I said, "Oh, he couldn't be that funny when it takes years to develop that kind of material." But he said, "Tom, this kid is funny." Usually when the band tells you a guy's funny, the guy's funny. Well, come to find out, Freddie wasn't 18, he was 17. But I went down, I saw his act, and, geez, he was wonderful. We became friends. But Freddie, when he came to Chicago, and stayed at my apartment, that night I took him back downtown. He was opening at the Playboy Club for Jonah Jones. And we went to this little bar. He had a night off. We went to this little bar and we were watching a trio play. And I was watching the bar, and we were kids. I was older than Freddie, but we were still new in the business. And he was watching the band. And he looked at me. He said to me while he's looking at the band, he said, "I'm going to become a big star one day." And I'm looking at the band. I said, "Yeah, yeah." We all talked like that in those days. He said, "Then I'm going to go out fast, man." And I turned and looked at him. I said, "I'm sorry. What are you talking about?" He said, "Fast, man, like James Dean." I said, "A car accident? No, man. I'm just going to go out fast." And he changed the subject. And I went home that night. I'm laying in bed with my wife, who, as I said earlier, playing it. She was a little bit of a depressive person sometimes too. And I said, "Gee, Freddie said the strangest thing." I was telling her. She said, "Oh, he needs help, Tom." I said, "Oh, what are you talking about? He's kid's 18 years old. I mean, he's got the world on. He's got the world in front of him. He's a brilliant young comedian." She said, "No, he's trying to tell you he needs help." I thought that's nonsense. And then, of course, you know the story. Freddie became a big star and later committed suicide. Um, that's when he started using drugs a lot in the West Coast. There was a time at the Comedy Store of 100 comedians, there were three who did not do drugs: me, David Letterman, and Jay Leno. And guess what? We're still all here. But everybody was snorting cocaine and getting high. It was a big deal in those days. Smoking grass was everybody smoked dope. Not me, but because I tried it and it got me paranoid. I smoked dope. I knew three words. What was that? That's all I knew. What was that? But anyhow, so it was the big thing. And Freddie got strung up on Quaaludes and cocaine and just got very depressed. And he finally committed suicide. But one night I tried to intervene. One night he was drinking Cavassier. He was taking Quaaludes and drinking Cavassier. And I was sitting with him at the improvisation. I said, "Freddie, you know that you're putting one chemical in your body that's speeding your heartbeat up and another chemical in your body that's slowing your heartbeat down. So you got two chemicals beating your heart up. He looked at me with that little boy grin he had. He said, "Are you giving me one of your classroom lectures?" Because he knew I lectured on drugs, you know. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Does that make me one of your students?" I said, "Freddie, I'm a student of yours," you know. And he laughed and we laughed. And I thought, he'll be all right. He'll get by this, but he never did. You know?
You don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but I'm curious if he ever played Russian roulette with you and if those stories are true.
Those stories were true. He never did that with me. I would have took that gun away from him, and I mean, I wouldn't have played that for 1 second because I was older than Freddie too. But he did do that. He would spin a gun. He didn't put a bullet in it all the time. He would spin it and he would put it to his head and click it. And one time, his secretary, his assistant Kathy, um, he would do that. She said, "Freddie, don't do that. That's crazy what you're doing." And one day she was in the other room and he fired a shot into the ceiling. And that apartment, that bullet hole was right where the wall meets the ceiling in the crevice there. That bullet hole was there for a long time, you know. But he fired a shot in the ceiling, then he laid down on the floor and she come running around the corner and almost passed out. You know, but I think he was rehearsing this that the suicide that he was going to do. And one night, of course, you know the story. He was sitting there talking to his business manager. He'd gone through 2 days of depression, and people were. He was calling people, and people were telling him you'll be all right. And then people were starting to stay with him, and they'd take turns staying with him. And his business manager was with him like from midnight to 4 in the morning. And Freddie was sitting there, and the business manager tells the story. He was saying, "And we're going to do this, Freddie. We're going to invest in that, and we'll look at some of these stock." And Freddie's just staring at him, nodding. And Freddie reached underneath the seat, under this couch where he's sitting on, under the cushion, and he pulled out a gun and pulled it to his head and pulled the trigger right in front of the business manager and killed himself. You know, he died the next day in the hospital, but it was tragic. It was really, really tragic because he was a brilliant comedy mind.